It's Greymon week.
Oh no!
Greymon's weak? We have to help him!
No, it's Greymon on Digimon all next week, starting Monday afternoon on Fox Kids.
With the recent addition of the 10-card sideboard to Digimon Card Game 2020 being used in the upcoming DigiFest, it's left many Digimon players wondering, what cards do I want to sideboard in? There's been a breadth of cards released over the past 7 sets, and it may be a bit daunting when trying to look for what cards are going to help your specific strategy be successful in some of your matchups. Over the course of this video, we're going to be focusing on red and the predominant sideboard cards that we believe will best support you going into DigiFest. Now, it's worth noting that before we go on, the most relevant red deck in the format is Red Hybrid, either a version running a mix of Ancient Greymon and Emperor Greymon, or a Soul Emperor Greymon version. The next most relevant would be Jesmon, and then your other red decks are mostly going to be Niche or Rogue. So that's your Shoutmons, your Agumons, and your Greymon Tribals. While they're not completely unplayable, we're going to be viewing these sideboards through the lens of those first 2 decks. The first card I want to talk about is Avengedmon. He's 12 to play, 3 to evolve, and is 11k DP level 6. When you play him from your hand, you can reduce his cost by 1 for each option card in both trashes. Then, on play, you can return all cards with 3 Musketeers or option cards in both players' trashes to the bottom of their owner's decks. Then if 7 or more cards were returned using this effect, you can either pop a 3 Musketeer or a Digimon with 8k DP or less. I don't want you to think about this card as the Musketeer hate card. Musketeers move towards more of a rogue status, and if it comes up in that matchup, hey, it comes up. You might find yourself popping a Beelstar. But even if you do that, the way the effects are triggered, the trash is going to get shuffled before the Beelstar gets killed, which is going to leave it there to potentially be recurred by an Impmon. However, in the Muskets matchup, basically putting their whole trash back in the deck is going to set them back. What I want you to think about this is as a recycling strategy for certain decks. Either yellow Susanoo-amon or potentially even Machinedramon can use this to effectively drag out the game in a stall scenario. He's also a Dragonkin, so there's an extremely niche synergy in the Greymon Tribal and Machinedra decks because of EX01 MetalGreymon. If you find yourself in a situation where you have to evolve, granting and piercing isn't the worst thing in the world. Next up is Magami, and let me start by saying yes, he is not a red card, but he has relevance in the red deck. Magami has always been good as a sideboard or a tech piece, and he is pretty good against D-Brigade Dark Knight, which is a real deck this format. He also is big enough to stop the non-beast forms of the hybrids, but will trade with any of the slide evos. The issue for him now, though, is he's pretty worthless against blue hybrid because he will just be bounced back or stunned into oblivion. Delicate Plan retains its same function from previous formats, serving as a direct counter to security control. Especially now with yellow hybrids, cards like Wyvern's Breath, or if they're splashing purple for Schwarzlesatz, are super punishing towards most strategies. The same can be said for the BT1 or Greymon. If you are in Jesmon or you're potentially playing enough red level 5s, he is a pretty interesting option to go into, because not only will he stop the options from triggering, but he'll also have the added effect of an additional security check. Ever since BT1, Red's biggest strength has been removing bodies from board, and currently there are 4 relevant options to talk about in that regard. The first one is Giga Storm, which best serves the role of sniping level 5s and is really good against the purple matchup, where they might be trying to recur Genkaku promotes or Cerebrusmon werewolf modes. There's also a really niche application with Beelstar if you have a red source. However, it's too reactive of a card. It's 7 to cast, and it only pops 2 things at max. This leaves it as the weakest of the 4 options we're about to go into. By comparison, Atomic Blaster is an all-star, with a lot of memory blocking rookies coming into play, Searchers, and of course Bokomon. Atomic Blaster might be a 3-for-1 a lot of the time. It's great in security, and it also has the ability where if you have a memory retention tamer and a memory boost, you can cast it on your turn without passing over. And on the off chance you do catch the hybrid Gabumon fusion, it's still just as punishing there as it was in BT6 in that matchup. Gaia Force has really fallen from grace just due to how clunky of a card it is to cast. It's a card you really only want to see in the security. However, it does deal with Susanoo-amon, Bonds, and the Ancients, which is great, but there's a lot more floating now than there was before. Gaia Force can be considered maybe a 1, but if you're not seeing in the security, you're not exactly happy to have it in your hand. Trident Revolver is an interesting case, where you can play it, you can snipe something, and then you can get a tamer to return tempo. Because of the prevalence of 3-cost cards in BT7, a lot of times you will find yourself at 3 with your opponent having a memory retention tamer. This put Trident Revolver's 6 memory cost as the perfect sweet spot. But the issue with it as a sideboard card is that if you're the deck that wants Trident Revolver, either a red-yellow hybrid or just a pure red hybrid, you're probably already playing it. While not a traditional piece of removal, GeoGreymon can serve that same role. However, the problem with GeoGreymon currently is that it's a very greedy card, and in the decks that could naturally evolve into it, they're probably full up of more relevant level 4s, such as Jesmon playing starter deck Greymon or Bauhuck, or Red Hybrid playing, well, Red Hybrids. The other issue is that Greymon's eating up 4 of your sideboard slots, and since sideboards are only 10, you don't necessarily have the room for him. While he can prop a problem rookie like Bokomon or a memory blocker, it's a role that's better fulfilled just by something like Atomic Blaster. He also has the issue that as a 5k body, the beast forms will not die to him in security checks. And with how good Jet Sylphie, Korikaku, and Burning Greymon are, you don't want them to continue around for another turn cycle after hitting your security. Gaussmon was a fairly innocuous card on release, but may become a format all-star now. Being a rookie, he's not taking up that bad of a slot, able to both evolve onto your eggs or just play out for 3. The other benefits is that Gauss stops so much this format, whether it's the level 5 hybrids that evo for 1, the potential of Imperial Dramon, the inheritable on JP, Digisorption, and the powerful reduction options in the form of 60% win rate, hidden potential discovered, and evolution ancient. Gaussmon has so many more targets than it has before. And as a niche benefit, if you commit multiple to board, it just gets bigger and bigger. Alter S is a card I really want to love, but right now he just doesn't have as much relevance. He can be okay against D-Brigade, and he can punish the hybrids minus yellow. He can recycle Megas, which is relevant for potentially red hybrid getting back Emperor Greymons, getting back an Avenged Kidmon, or a Chaos Dramon or Machine Dramon in those strategies. But he doesn't kill the beast forms after D-Digivolving, and hybrids can just hide from him in raising. In the end, he's just begging D to Wyvern's Breath or a Gaia Force, and that's a little bit tragic for a card that has fallen so far. If you're looking for another Omnimon to play, there's the BT5 Omnimon. It's good to bring into any matchup with Destruction or Bounce, and can serve as another potential finisher off of, say, an Emperor Greymon, Ancient Greymon, Magna Garurumon, or Ancient Garurumon. BT5 Omni does have a tendency to stick, and that's a great thing about him. He also offers that additional bit of pressure checking over the top with Blitz. However, in blue and red, he's not really receiving the inherits like he used to in older formats. He's a niche card. I would play him at 1 just as another finisher, thinking of him as a bigger version of a Goonie for game. The final card I'd like to touch on is Heritage of Dragons, because it does something that red lacks, which is card draw and card advantage. It's also in the perfect range to pop something like Bokomon. The problem with Heritage of Dragons is that it requires a Dramon name or a Greymon name, which isn't uncommon with Emperor Greymon, Ancient Greymon, Machine Dramon, Chaos Dramon, and a few other onesie-twosies. It's really good in that regard for filling in a gap red has, but I wouldn't run it at any more than 1. Think about it in matchups where you really need the extra advantage and you need to punish them for playing out utility rookies. The final note I want to say about sideboarding is that when you're either constructing it, or you're looking at the cards in this video, or maybe cards that we didn't talk about, is think about what weaknesses your strategy has. Think about what you may be playing against. Think about what you might want to bring in as a silver bullet for those specific matchups. Just because a card is generally good does not make it a good sideboard card. Your sideboard card should exist as having extreme benefits against certain matchups, while not being something you would necessarily want to main deck. If you have any other secret sideboard tech that you may want to bring up, hey, drop a comment below. With DigiFest coming up and the new rules change, it's very important to start thinking about and constructing your sideboards now versus later, especially as they are going to be a consistent part of the game moving forward more than likely. Today's video is sponsored by Ultimate TCG. Use code LEGION2022 at checkout for a 3% discount. As always, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.